We all go through phases when life feels steady, almost too steady. You wake up, follow your routine, and start to believe you've already figured out the important parts. For me, I thought my bond with my son Daniel was already defined. Solid, dependable, unchanging. We were close, yes, but our relationship had slipped into a rhythm that felt predictable. Dinner together here and there, phone calls to check in small talk that never scratched the surface. But then came that weekend. A simple trip I didn't expect to mean anything at all. Friends had told me countless times, take a family trip, you'll reconnect. Honestly, I didn't believe them. After losing my husband years earlier, I hadn't traveled much. And Daniel, now well into his 30s, was busy building his own life. Spending a weekend together sounded more like a formality than anything transformative. Still, when Daniel said softly, "Mom, let's go away for a few days. Just the two of us. It'll be good for you," I agreed. Not because I was convinced, but because that part of me, the mother who never wants to let her child down, said yes, before I could think twice. So we packed up and drove to a cabin in the mountains. It was a charming place, rustic, yet welcoming, perched on the side of a ridge, with wide windows overlooking a golden valley. I'll never forget stepping out of the car as the sun sank low, the air crisp, the silence wrapping around us like a blanket. Daniel had planned every detail, booked the cabin, stocked the kitchen, even remembered the little things I usually forget. That night, we shared dinner by the fireplace. The crackling wood, the warm light dancing on the walls, it pulled us into a slower rhythm. We spoke of family, of old memories, of the trips his father and I once took when life was still full of beginnings. As I described our honeymoon in Paris, wandering narrow streets with laughter echoing into the night, Daniel leaned in and listened as though every word mattered. For a moment, I saw not just my grown son, but the little boy who once sat at our kitchen table, eyes wide with curiosity. And then in the pause that followed our laughter, the air shifted. Daniel cleared his throat, nervous, hesitant. I set down my cup of tea and studied his face. "There's something I've been wanting to say, Mum." My heart tightened. His tone was careful, fragile. "Since Dad passed, we've kind of lived side by side, haven't we? We talk, but not about what really matters. I don't want us to miss the chance to truly reconnect." His words stopped me cold. I had spent so long carrying my own grief that I hadn't realized the distance it had carved between us. Looking into his eyes, I saw vulnerability, a quiet plea I hadn't noticed before. "I didn't know you felt that way," I whispered. "I'm sorry, Daniel. I let my grief take up too much space." He shook his head gently. "It's not about blame, Mum. I miss us." And right then, something inside me softened. The truth was undeniable. Our conversations had grown safe and shallow, circling the surface while avoiding the deep waters beneath. We had both filled the silence in our own ways, but neither of us had really reached across it. Sitting there, in the glow of the fire, I finally understood. This trip was never just about escaping to the mountains. It was about finding each other again. That night after dinner, we sat once more by the fire. The flames danced shadows, flickering against the cabin walls. And for the first time in years, I didn't feel like I was sitting across from just my son. I was sitting across from a man who cared enough to pull me back into life. We didn't rush the silence. It was a silence that felt whole, no longer heavy with unspoken words, but alive with understanding. Then Daniel spoke, his voice low. "Mom, promise me something." I tilted my head. "What's that?" "Promise me you'll take that painting class. Promise me you won't keep putting yourself last." The tears came before I could stop them. Not because of the class itself, but because of what it meant. It meant he saw me, not just as his mother, not just as a widow, but as a woman still allowed to dream. I reached across, took his hand, and smiled through the blur of my tears. "I promise." The fire popped softly, almost as if sealing the vow. That weekend changed me. I arrived expecting a quiet getaway, but I left with something far more valuable. A renewed bond with my son, and a reminder that life doesn't end when loss enters the picture. It reshapes you, yes, but it also offers you the chance to start again if you're brave enough to say yes. And maybe that's what we all need to remember. No matter how many years pass, no matter how much we've lost, there's still room to rediscover joy, to reconnect, and to embrace the parts of life we thought were gone. So if you're watching this, I'll leave you with one question. The same one my son asked me. What's something you've always wanted to do, but never let yourself try? Because maybe it's not too late. As we packed up to leave the next morning, I felt a calm I hadn't known in years. The mountains faded behind us as we drove, but what stayed with me was the feeling that something inside me had shifted. I realized then it wasn't just about a trip to a cabin. It was about choosing to live again, to let myself dream again, to let my son see me, not only as his mother, but as a woman still capable of joy, still worthy of new beginnings. Henry glanced over at me as the car wound down the mountain road. "You look happy, Mom," he said gently, and for the first time in a long time, I could answer honestly, "I am." That weekend taught me something I'll carry for the rest of my life. Grief may change us, but it doesn't have to define us. There's always room for connection, for healing, for rediscovery, if we're willing to take the first step. And maybe that's something we should all remember. No matter where you are in life, no matter what you've lost, or how much time has passed, there's still a chance to begin again. So let me ask you, if you had the chance to rediscover a forgotten dream or reconnect with someone you love, what would your first step be? If this story touched your heart, I'd love to hear from you. Have you ever taken a trip, had a conversation, or shared a moment that completely changed the way you saw your loved ones or even yourself? Share your story in the comments below, because your voice might be exactly what someone else needs to hear today. And if you'd like to hear more stories, like this, stories of love, healing, and rediscovery, make sure to subscribe to the channel and hit the notification bell. That way, you'll never miss the next chapter we share together. Thank you for spending this time with me. Until next time, take care of yourself. And remember, it's never too late to begin again.